Born in 1988 in the village of Kure, Traoré witnessed firsthand the poverty created by decades of French exploitation. After enlisting in the army in 2009, he rose through the ranks, eventually commanding artillery units fighting jihadists in the country's volatile north.
We were born into this system, but that's not what can allow Burkina to thrive. Because in this situation, there are only two cases. Either we accept to fight or we remain slaves forever.
France's exploitation of Africa operates through a sophisticated system centered on the CFA franc, a currency that might be the greatest financial scam in modern history. Here's how it works. 14 African nations, including Burkina Faso, must deposit 50 to 65% of their foreign exchange reserves directly with the French treasury. They can only access 15% of their own money without French permission. The rest, nearly $500 billion, sits in French banks, generating interest that benefits France, not Africa. These countries must also give France first right to buy any natural resources discovered, prioritize French companies in government contracts, and allow French troops on their soil. The results are devastating. Burkina Faso is Africa's fourth largest gold producer, with French companies dominating extraction. Yet 40% of Burkina live below the poverty line. Niger's uranium powers 75% of France's electricity, while 90% of Nigerians have no electricity at all.
Well, army officers in Burkina Faso have announced the overthrow of military leader Paul-Henri Damiba. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has been declared the new head of the West African country. On Friday, explosions and heavy gunfire were reported near the presidential palace in the capital, Ouagadougou. It's Burkina Faso's second coup in just 9 months.
On September 30th, 2022, everything changed. After months of watching jihadists gain ground while the government failed to act, Captain Traoré seized control of the capital, Ouagadougou. Unlike previous coup leaders, who quickly fell in line with French demands, Traoré immediately broke the chains of neocolonialism. Within months, he had expelled all 400 French special forces, removed French military advisors, kicked out the French ambassador, and begun nationalizing French-owned gold mines. French President Emmanuel Macron was blindsided. For decades, France had maintained control by backing coups that installed friendly leaders. Now, a military takeover was actually threatening French interests instead of protecting them. Our people have suffered enough and they are still suffering. Ibrahim Traoré, September 30th, 2022. What makes Traoré different is his focus on self-reliance, a philosophy directly inspired by Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, who was assassinated in 1987 with French complicity. Made in Africa is what will conquer these people, Traoré declared in a 2023 speech. His government has launched programs to boost agricultural production, build the country's first gold refinery, and create a new digital currency backed by gold to replace the CFA franc by 2026. Most remarkably, Traoré has mobilized ordinary citizens in ways not seen since Sankara's time. His call for volunteers for the defense of the homeland saw an astonishing response. In some provinces, 20,000 young people signed up in a single week to help fight jihadists. Unlike his predecessors who lived in luxury, Traoré has refused to enrich himself. He declined his presidential salary and continues to wear his captain's uniform rather than promoting himself to general. Traoré's revolution didn't stop at Burkina Faso's borders. He joined with the leaders of Mali and Niger to form the Alliance of Sahel States, a direct challenge to French influence in the region. All three countries had expelled French forces and were now creating a unified front against French economic control.
Today marks the official withdrawal of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso from the West African regional bloc, ECOWAS. The three Sahel states announced a year ago that they were cutting ties with the bloc after their membership was suspended following military coups in the countries. The main role of ECOWAS is to promote economic integration in all fields.
Their first major announcement, they would withdraw from ECOWAS, the West African economic bloc heavily influenced by France, and create their own currency to replace the CFA franc. The impact was immediate. French companies lost mining concessions worth billions. The CFA franc system, which had funneled African wealth to France for decades, faced its most serious threat ever. France didn't take this lying down. According to security sources, there have been at least 18 assassination attempts on Traoré's life since he came to power. The attempts have only increased Traoré's popularity. Thousands of young Burkina have now volunteered to protect their leader, with some sleeping outside his residence to symbolically shield him from foreign assassins. Imagine they're sitting here and the president just passed and see them. That's kind of motivate the president. This is why they decided to go out and to be like, oh, if something happened in the country, they have to be alerted, so they can react immediately in order to protect the president. Imperialism is a bad student because when it is chased out of the classroom, it comes back. Thomas Sankara, quoted by Traoré. France has also weaponized economic pressure. When the AES nations announced their withdrawal from ECOWAS, neighboring French-aligned countries closed their ports to landlocked Burkina Faso, violating international law in an attempt to strangle its economy.
Nuclear fallout from France's tests in Algeria continues to devastate the country 60 years later. Local researchers say thousands of Algerians have suffered the effects of nuclear radiation across the Algerian Sahara, and many of the toxic sites have not been decontaminated.
Between 1960 and 1966, France conducted 17 nuclear tests in Algeria. Thousands of civilians were exposed to radiation, and contaminated zones were never fully cleaned. Do people know that when France was experimenting with its first atomic bomb, it was black soldiers they put next to it in the lethal radius to see the effect? France tested their nuclear bombs on Africans and left us to suffer the fallout while they profited from uranium. Ibrahim Traoré, 2023. France also tested chemical weapons, including napalm and tear gas, in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Chad during the 1950s to 70s. To this day, France has never fully compensated the victims. In April 2025, Traoré made his boldest move yet, appearing at a military summit in Moscow alongside leaders from Iran, Venezuela, Mali, and China. The message was clear. Burkina Faso was building new alliances to counter French influence. For France, the stakes couldn't be higher. Without access to African resources and the benefits of the CFA franc system, France faces serious economic challenges. Former French President François Mitterrand once admitted, without Africa, France will slide down to the rank of a third world power. The question now is whether Traoré can succeed where Sankara failed. Can he avoid assassination long enough to cement his reforms? Can the alliance of Sahel states withstand French economic pressure? And will other African nations follow their lead? You have to fight. It will not come from heaven alone. You have to fight first and God will help you. Ibrahim Traoré, 2023. What's clear is that Ibrahim Traoré has already accomplished something remarkable. He's shown that even one of the world's poorest countries can stand up to a former colonial power and win. The story of Ibrahim Traoré and France's crumbling empire in Africa is being systematically suppressed online. Your engagement is crucial to breaking through this censorship. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Do you think Traoré can succeed where Sankara failed? Will other African nations follow Burkina Faso's lead? If you like the video, please hit that like button and subscribe our channel. Samix Truths for more interesting and informative content.